the cameras flashed.
Oh, yeah.
The crowd just completely froze.
Yeah.
And, just like that, a literal 3-second interaction on a staircase became the internet's absolute newest obsession.
Totally.
Welcome to StarScope Report.
Yeah.
Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are doing a massive deep dive into a moment that, honestly, it played out in front of hundreds of photographers. It was captured on the CNN TikTok that went absolutely everywhere, and it just instantly ignited this firestorm across, like TMZ, OK Magazine, The Mirror.
It was everywhere.
Literally everywhere. And we're talking, of course, about that intensely viral, objectively cringeworthy encounter between global superstar Bad Bunny and the architect of the Kardashian-Jenner empire herself, Kris Jenner.
Yes, at the 2026 Met Gala.
Exactly. And what makes this stack of sources that we have today so fascinating to dig into, it isn't just the gossip element.
Right, it's way more than that.
Yeah, it's how a physical gesture that lasts, less time than a breath, can just completely hijack the entire cultural conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got body language analyses, we have timeline breakdowns, fashion critiques, and they all point to the same underlying truth, which is that we are witnessing a real-time masterclass execution of public relations.
Image control at its finest.
Exactly.
But okay, to even begin to decipher the psychology of this hug, or, well, the lack of a hug.
Right, the attempted hug.
Yeah, the attempted hug. We really have to visualize the sheer, absurd reality of how Bad Bunny actually walked into this room.
Oh, it was a lot.
Because his physical presentation was really the fuse that lit this whole awkward interaction. So for context, the theme for the 2026 Met Gala was Costume Art, the Aging Body.
Which is, that is an ambitious theme for the Costume Institute to pull off.
Totally.
Because they were essentially asking designers and guests to, explore how time interacts with physical form.
Right. Perception, fashion, all of that.
Yeah. And Bad Bunny Benito, Antonio Martinez Ocasio, he decided to interpret that not just with, the clothes he was wearing, but by fundamentally erasing his own youth.
He went all in. He fully committed to the bit.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking about a man who enlisted Mike Marino.
The legend.
Right, the legendary movie makeup artist.
Right.
He enlisted him to apply heavy cinematic aging prosthetics to his face.
It was incredible work.
It really was. He wore this stark white wig. He grew out a full gray beard. He actively designed this look to appear 50 years older than his actual age.
Which is crazy to see on a red carpet.
And on the carpet, he even deadpanned to reporters that it took him 53 years to get ready.
I loved that. But, the visual shock value of that, it just cannot be overstated.
No, not at all.
Because he paired those prosthetics with this custom black Zara tuxedo.
Wait, Zara? Like the mall brand?
Yeah, custom Zara. But what really anchored the outfit was this massive, oversized pussy bow tied around his neck.
Right, which is quite the statement.
It is. And for anyone not, steeped in fashion history, a pussy bow is a style of neckline that has this large bow tied at the front.
Usually you see it on classic women's blouses, right?
Exactly. But here, he used it as a direct homage to the designer Charles James and his iconic 1947 bustle gown.
Which I am so glad you brought up, because the mechanics of that bustle gown are actually super important here.
Oh, totally. Break it down for them.
So a bustle is basically a padded undergarment used to add, a ton of volume to the back of a woman's dress.
Yeah.
And Charles James was famous for these heavily structured, almost architectural garments.
Yeah, they completely manipulated the human silhouette.
Right. So Benito is taking this mid-century concept of, manipulating the body's shape, and he's pairing it with prosthetics that manipulate the body's age.
It's so layered.
And then he topped it all off with a walking cane and, of course, Cartier jewelry.
Because you have to have the Cartier.
Obviously. But, he looked like a phenomenally wealthy, impeccably dressed octogenarian.
Which creates just this staggering juxtaposition when you consider his actual position in the cultural hierarchy at that exact moment.
Oh, 100%.
This man is at the absolute zenith of global power right now.
Yeah, he had just become the first Latino to win the Album of the Year Grammy for an all-Spanish album.
Which is huge.
Massive. And days before this gala, he headlined the historic Super Bowl 60 halftime show.
Again, entirely in Spanish.
Right. So you have the biggest pop star on the planet, a guy with invincible cultural armor.
Yeah.
Choosing to strip away his youthful magnetism. He's presenting himself as frail on the most aggressively photographed red carpet in the entire world.
It's a massive risk.
And into this highly constructed avant-garde performance art piece
Yeah.
walks your ex-girlfriend's mother.
Oh, man.
I mean, just pause and think about the emotional reality of that for a second.
It's so bad.
It is literally like running into your former mother-in-law at the grocery store, but you're wearing a full witness protection disguise and carrying a cane.
It is objectively hilariously absurd.
It really is.
Yeah.
So you have the biggest pop star in the world dressed as an 82-year-old man making a beeline for the most powerful momager in Hollywood.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, everything. Because that intense visual contrast is exactly what makes the actual physical encounter on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art so jarring.
Yeah, it was painful to watch.
It really was. The high art reality of the Met Gala just instantly clashed with the very messy, grounded reality of their personal history.
So let's break down the choreography of that clash.
Let's do it.
Because like we said, CNN captured the entire sequence on a TikTok that absolutely exploded.
Millions of views.
Instantly.
Yeah.
So Kris Jenner is standing near the top of the stairs. She looks incredibly sharp. She's in this structured copper and white Dolce & Gabbana kimono-style coat.
Gorgeous look.
Stunning. And Bad Bunny spots her, and he just makes a beeline straight in her direction.
And the spatial dynamics here are so crucial.
Yeah, walk us through it.
Okay, so he approaches her, he extends a hand, and he actually grabs her forearm.
Like he really grabs it.
Yeah, and he uses that grip to lean in for what appears to be a one-armed side hug.
But the reciprocity just isn't there at all.
No, it is totally one-sided.
Kris does not step into the embrace. She remains entirely rigid in her posture.
Like a statue.
Literally. And instead of wrapping her arm around him, she brings her hand up, gives his arm a few quick staccato pats.
A tap, tap, tap.
Right. Flashes a very fixed smile, and then they separate.
And then he uses the momentum from that aborted hug to just pivot.
Yeah, it was so awkward.
One of the sources actually described him as practically using Kris like a pole to spin around.
Oh my God.
Just so he could greet Kim Kardashian, who's standing right there.
And Kim was in that sculpted orange look by Alan Jones, right?
Exactly.
And Kim's reaction mirrors her mother's perfectly. She maintains this wide-eyed, polite distance.
Zero warmth.
Zero.
Oh.
And the viral fallout was instantaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, fans in the CNN comments were brutal.
Oh, the comments are always the best part.
They were calling the interaction tense cold. I saw one comment that said, quote, "That was the most uncomfortable hug I have seen," followed by like 5 laughing emojis.
Yeah, the internet immediately recognized that something was fundamentally off.
But the theories kind of split into 2 camps online.
Right.
Either Kris was executing this very calculated PR snub, or she simply had genuinely no idea who this elderly-looking man grabbing her arm was.
And see, this is where we have to examine the concept of the panopticon.
Ooh, big word. Explain that for us.
So the Met Gala steps are basically designed so that you are observed from 360 degrees.
Right, by cameras, reporters, the public.
Everyone. And you just behave differently when you know you are being universally watched.
Sure, of course you do.
The physical gesture of a hug implies private warmth and, a family greeting, but on those steps, it is a public broadcast.
And what exactly was that broadcast saying? Because we actually have 2 different body language experts from our source stack who analyzed this exact footage. And they noticed some very different layers to those awkward arm pats.
Yeah, so first, Dr. Beth Dawson looked at the mechanics of the interaction.
And what did she say?
She pointed out that Bad Bunny's initial approach, extending the hand and going around her shoulder, was actually a formal gesture.
Okay.
It showed respect, but it deliberately avoided suggesting profound intimacy.
Interesting.
But Kris's response is the real focal point here. By taking his forearm rather than, matching his stance and stepping in, Kris asserted total control over the interaction.
Oh, wow. So Dr. Dawson said those little pats on the arm were essentially like traffic signals.
Yes. They communicated, this is friendly, but now we're done here. Do not enter my space.
That is so passive-aggressive.
It is. And she also keyed in on Kris's smile, noting that it was sustained and controlled. It was not spontaneous.
Okay, wait. Explain the difference between a PR smile and a real one.
Well, that distinction is actually rooted in physiology. A genuine smile, which is known as a Duchenne smile, involves the involuntary contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscle.
The muscles around the eyes.
Exactly. The muscles around the eyes, they crinkle.
Right. You can't fake the crinkle.
You really can't. A controlled smile, like the one Kris displayed, only engages the mouth. A mask. It's boundary setting disguised as politeness.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have to stop you there for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Are we maybe giving her way too much credit for a split-second reaction?
You think we're overanalyzing?
A little bit. I mean, put yourself in her shoes. You're trying not to trip on a giant staircase.
Fair.
1,000 flashbulbs are going off in your face, and suddenly a guy covered in heavy theatrical AG makeup, holding a cane, marches up and grabs your arm to pivot around you.
True.
Isn't a stiff, wide-eyed reaction just a basic mammalian startle reflex?
It's a good point.
Like, isn't it totally possible she was just genuinely thinking, who is this old man and why is he touching my Dolce coat?
Okay, I hear you. And if it were literally anyone else in Hollywood, the startle reflex theory would be highly plausible.
Right.
The cognitive dissonance of seeing someone you know intimately looking half a century older is definitely disorienting.
Yeah, it would freak me out.
However, Kris Jenner has spent 2 decades training her nervous system for the red carpet.
That was very true.
She operates an empire where every single micro-expression is a tradable asset.
Right.
Her baseline state in public is calculated vigilance.
So you're saying the confusion might have been real for, like, a millisecond, but the recovery was pure strategy.
Precisely. And that aligns perfectly with the analysis of our second expert, Inbal Honigman.
Oh, yeah. Honeyman did not mince words.
No, she did not. She called the reaction flat out cold.
Cold. Wow.
Yeah. She noted that Benito approached with a posture expecting a family-style cuddle.
The kind where you lean in and your heads meet in the middle.
Exactly. Kris unequivocally refused to share that physical space.
She shut it down.
Completely. And Kim backed up that refusal by maintaining her own physical distance.
Okay, so if we accept that the coldness was intentional, that the physical distance was a deliberate choice,
Which I think it was.
then we have to look at the machinery behind that choice.
Right.
Because there is a very specific billion-dollar reason why the Kardashians deploy physical space as a weapon.
Yes. Physical proximity on a red carpet equals a public endorsement.
Period.
And to understand why Bad Bunny lost that endorsement, we really have to look at the shifting alliances of the Kardashian-Jenner loyalty ecosystem.
Specifically regarding Kendall Jenner.
Right.
And later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming with all of this. But first, let's look at the history here, because it's pretty well documented.
Yeah, it was very public.
Benito and Kendall had a high-profile relationship starting in early 2023.
Right.
It lasted less than a year. They had a heavily scrutinized split, allegedly briefly reunited in mid-2024. But by the time they all walked into this 2026 Met Gala, the romantic ties were definitively severed.
Done. Over. And the nature of that breakup is really the missing piece of the puzzle here.
Because it wasn't some huge blowout, right?
No, not at all. Entertainment Tonight sources reported it wasn't an explosive, dramatic falling out. It was just a realization that it wasn't a, quote, forever type of relationship.
Which happens.
Yeah. They are young, their schedules are punishingly busy, and it naturally fizzled. The sources even explicitly noted that Kendall's family, quote, still thinks highly of him in private.
But, as we are seeing on the Met steps, private affection does not translate to public access.
Not with this family.
Because both of them have completely moved on.
Oh.
Kendall is heavily rumored to be dating the Australian actor Jacob Elordi.
Oh, yeah.
There were sightings of them at a Coachella after-party just weeks before this gala.
Right.
And Bad Bunny has reportedly reconciled with his ex, Gabriella Berlingeri.
So everyone has moved on. But this brings us to a really fascinating contradiction in how the Kardashian family operates.
What do you mean?
Well, Kris Jenner is famously, sometimes aggressively, forgiving with the men who enter their orbit.
Oh, you mean like the other exes?
Exactly. She maintains incredibly close, highly publicized relationships with her daughter's exes.
Okay, yeah. Tristan Thompson and Travis Scott are the perfect examples of that.
Totally.
Because the relationship drama with Khloe and Kylie was messy.
Very messy.
It was very public and, frankly, damaging to the brand at times.
Absolutely.
Yet Kris constantly folds them back into the family narrative.
She always does.
They show up on the Hulu series. They are invited to the private parties.
No, why does a guy who had a totally amicable split with Kendall get frozen out on the Met steps?
It comes down to utility.
Utility.
And brand preservation. Tristan and Travis are the fathers of Kris's grandchildren.
Oh, right.
They are permanently, biologically tethered to the Kardashian-Jenner legacy.
You can't just cut them out.
No. Managing their public image is a matter of protecting the family's long-term brand equity. They have to be folded in.
But Bad Bunny does not share that tether.
Wow. So once he and Kendall broke up, his utility to the reality show storylines and the family narrative simply evaporated.
More than evaporated, honestly. It became a liability.
A liability? How?
Well, the Kardashian PR machine operates on cohesive, forward-moving storylines.
Right.
The current narrative they are seeding is Kendall moving forward with Jacob Elordi.
Okay, I see where you're going.
If Kris Jenner had warmly embraced Bad Bunny on those steps, if she had allowed that intimate head-to-head cuddle, the photographs would have generated a completely different news cycle.
You're right. The headlines would have been, Kendall's ex reconciles with family, or is Bad Bunny winning Kris back?
Exactly. It would have completely hijacked Kendall's current era.
Wow. So by denying him the physical space of a hug, Kris neutralized the threat of a rogue narrative.
She protected the brand's focus.
That is ruthless.
It really is.
But it's incredible efficiency. And it makes so much sense when you look at the wider context of the family's presence at the gala that night.
Oh, they were on a mission.
They weren't just attending, they were deploying.
Yes.
I mean, Kendall was walking the carpet in that flesh-toned Gap Studio faux nipple dress, generating massive buzz.
Everyone was talking about it.
And Kylie was fully leaning into the naked fashion trend in a hyper-structured Schiaparelli corset.
Beautiful.
They were there to dominate the fashion conversation as a unified front.
And a red carpet for this family is basically a military operation.
Right.
Welcoming an ex into their physical orbit would have fractured their visual unity.
Because then the story becomes about him.
Exactly. Chris's arm pats weren't a greeting. They were a velvet rope.
A velvet rope. I love that.
It was her physical way of demonstrating, you used to have all-access VIP clearance, but as of tonight, you are general admission.
A velvet rope made of arm pats.
Ugh.
That is the perfect synthesis.
It really sums it up.
We took a 3-second interaction. A moment so fleeting you could literally miss it if you blinked, and found the entire architectural blueprint of Hollywood image control inside it.
It's all right there.
It's the intersection of high-concept fashion, the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny, and the cold calculus of celebrity alliances.
And I think it highlights a broader truth about the modern ecosystem of fame.
Which is what?
For figures operating at this level, nothing is truly spontaneous.
Never.
A hug is never just a hug. It is a press release.
Yeah.
It is a status update on an alliance. Bad Bunny's disguise was a deliberate performance about the ravages of aging.
Right.
But Kris Jenner's reaction was an entirely different kind of performance.
Yeah.
Hers was about the maintenance of power and the revocation of access.
And that leaves us with a truly unsettling thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We live in an era where every micro-expression, every hesitation, every half-hug is instantly dissected by body language experts and debated by millions of people on TikTok.
Every single day.
Right. So does that constant suffocating surveillance force these celebrities to perform their personal relationships to the point where genuine emotion just goes extinct?
Ooh, that's deep. It is the ultimate observer effect in psychology.
What does that mean?
Well, the act of observing a phenomenon inevitably changes the phenomenon itself.
Right.
When you know a single misplaced smile can launch $1 million rumor, you just stop smiling naturally.
You curate your reflexes.
Exactly. You curate your reflexes.
It makes you wonder if that X-ray machine of public opinion hasn't just exposed how these people interact, but actually fundamentally reprogrammed them.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, if you are fascinated by how we unpack these wild cultural moments, if you love zooming in on the invisible strings pulling the celebrity world, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yes, definitely subscribe.
We have even more deep dives into the hidden mechanics of pop culture coming your way. And you won't want to miss what we deconstruct next.
It's going to be good.
Keep an eye on the details, because as we saw on those museum steps, the cameras flash, the crowd froze, and the real story was hiding right there in plain sight. You've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.